Hi, my name's Stephen Hand from Archery Supplies, and today I want to talk about PSE Archery being sold. So PSE Archery was sold yesterday to a company called the Outdoor Heritage Group. And I was like, who is this group? So I started looking it up, and they talk about tradition and investing in outdoor companies. So I'm like, well, what outdoor companies do they own? Are they part of the outdoor group who own Elite? Are they part of the group that own Bowtech? Who are they? Because what I've seen is lots of archery companies are being brought out by investment groups. Gold Tip, Bowtech, Elite, Ferradine, NAP, Black Eagle, mental blank. Anyway, a whole bunch have been brought out by these investment groups. And for me as a dealer, it's always a bit worrying what's going to happen when a new owner takes over. Because if I take a company like Ferradine, which is Carbon Express, I was like, well, what happens when they get sold? Carbon Express, we all know what's happened with Carbon Express since it's been taken over. NAP, I used to be a big NAP dealer. When it gets taken over, I can't buy the product anymore. And NAP to me is now a dead product. So I always question what's going to happen with PSE when it gets taken over, so I start to do a bit of research. Now there was lots of rumours PSE was for sale, and I would ask PSE and they'd always say no, it's not for sale, no interest in selling. But there was constant rumours on forums that PSE was up for sale and had been sold. And there was many names thrown around in that mix. And you look up those names, you're like, those people don't have the money to buy the company. They're not wealthy enough, they don't have a history of building wealth. So I was like, well, it was a bit of a nothing to me. Anyway, it was announced yesterday this Outdoor Heritage Group purchased PSE. There was no dollar value connected to the sale, and I've got no concept of what PSE would sell for. PSE was originally a factory, but that has sold, so I don't know who owns that now. So I assume they're buying the name and the equipment inside the plant. That's what I assume. I don't know, there's been no release done on that. But the person who brought the company, the CEO, is a Zack Gleeson. And I'm like, who's Zack Gleeson? So you start to Google Zack Gleeson, and I'm sure a lot of people have done this. There's not a lot on Zack Gleeson. There's one Apple podcast which talk about him being an entrepreneur, and that was from 2 years ago. Link Eden has him having very short jobs in Black Rifle Company for 6 months as a Chief Information Technology Officer, and I'd stress for 6 months. They had him working for Cryptech. Now Cryptech has 5 staff, and they had him down for a few other companies. All these companies were very small. And you're going to say, well, Black Rifle was bigger. I actually couldn't find that many connections with him and Black Rifle, but I'm not disputing the fact that he worked there. But there wasn't, he wasn't on the board, and doesn't seem to be a lot of connections. He does seem to have some sort of IT background, although there doesn't seem to be a degree, where he builds or he employs people that does stuff with Shopify to promote products in the Shopify network. So Shopify is used to build web-based platforms to sell products online, and there's a whole bunch of products that you can add into it, and it's very hard to know which product to add in. So from what I was reading, one of his companies or people promote those products, and he takes a skim off the top. Maybe he's got wealthy parents. I don't know. He's a younger guy, which generally would say you haven't built a lot of wealth when you're younger, but I don't know. There's been no names about investors behind this group. who owns it. It doesn't seem to be like a big investment fund that some of the companies who have been brought are owned by. So they're like, sometimes they're big super funds, and they have a line which would be outdoor stuff. So they have lots of, I'm going to say, line items. So they might invest in the car industry, they might invest in crypto, they might invest in retail, and they might invest in clothing. And one of the line items will be outdoors, so they'll buy outdoor products. So it doesn't appear that this is the case. Now, Zack has done one post to say PSE is going to be 100% made in America. Now, that worries me. And people are going to say, well, we love America. PSE is not 100% American. And I'm going to say it never was. A lot of their products are made in China. And people are going to say, oh, that's blasphemous. No, like the Micromidas is made in China. The cheap compound bows made in China. The recurves are made in China. The arrows are made in China. And a lot of your sights, quivers, and components are made in China. The t-shirt's probably made in China. The hat's probably made in China. So it kind of worries me when a new CEO buys the company and says it's going to be all made in America. I'm not having a kind of a go at Zack because I don't know who he is, but for me and for people I know who have brought companies, and I know people who buy companies, it takes a long time for them to understand the company and work out where they're going with it. And it's either a short-term thing or a long-term thing. So one of my friends buys companies, or his company buys companies, and then they split them up. So they might buy a company for $10 million, split it up into two parts, and sell them both for $6 million each. So they have a thing of building it up and saying, well, look, currently it's valued at $3 million. If we do this, then we can value it at $6 million, and then they sell out of it. So I didn't get that flavour from Zack Gleeson's any of his profiles online. He's clearly a hunter, so I guess he likes archery. He did a post of when you tell your wife you've brought an archery business. I'm sure that went down well with his wife. But basically there's not a lot of information. And it didn't come as a big surprise to me because I lost all my connections with Pete in the factory. And the way PSE has been running the last year has changed a lot over the past 30 years when I've been dealing with PSE. I'm not having a go at anyone, I'm just saying that it was different. So let's just touch into this. When I first went to buy PSE, I wanted to have PSE in my store. There was no PSE being sold in Australia. It was very, very small. And I go to the sales rep and I say, I want to buy PSE. The sales rep says, no problem, you've got to buy a whole bunch of stuff. So I sell a house. I sell one of my houses and I go, there you are, there's a $100,000 order for stuff, because houses were cheaper back then, right? And that house right now would be $800,000. Thank you very much for my brilliant investment decisions. So that house would be $800,000, maybe a bit more. Anyway, so we sold that house to buy PSE. Pete Shepley said no. He said no, very brand loyal to the dealer. He gave the dealer another year to try and pick up sales. So the next year rolls along and there's a new salesperson at PSE and I'm at the ATA show and I go up and I'm like, are you interested in selling in Australia? And he said, sure. So I placed the $100,000 order, might have been bigger, and I start buying. But Pete had a finger on it, he gave the guy a year to try and pick up his sales. And I'm going to say his sales were very minuscule, like less than I sell in a week. So he gave him a year to try and pick it up. And he did pick it up a little bit, but not much. In fact, he picked it up more when I was selling because he kind of built on my, I'm not sounding like I'm bragging here, but my sales went through the roof with PSE. As a result, his sales also went through the roof. So it's not like they grew to the same extent, but they definitely picked up. I think they were 3 times what they were when he had me selling versus before, because there was demand in the market. He didn't create any demand before, so he didn't work. He was lazy, and I'm going to say he's lazy because he was a lazy ass, and didn't do anything to promote the brand. So when someone was promoting the brand, he picked up sales from it. But anyway, but the difference to me was Pete was very involved with the company in decisions. He was very hands-on. So, and in the last year, I've had no interactions with Pete and how he's feeling about stuff. And it could be COVID because like the world's changed and things, and it's hard to source products. There was definitely, like before at the PSE factory, it was like, well, how are we sitting? How do we compare? What products are we good against? Which ones do we need to improve? How's sales? Which product's doing well in the marketplace? Which one's not doing well? What's our biggest competition? These were all common questions I was asked. Which brand? Which products? What do we need to do better in? These were all common things I've been asked every single year since selling PSE. Didn't happen. Whether it's COVID, there's enough sales, I don't know. That all kind of went away. So now I know that staff changed at PSE, but that all went away. So anyway, it wasn't a surprise for me to see PSE sold. It's very sad for me to see PSE sold because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know where the brand's going to go. And I know there's some people out there like Greg Paul going, oh, it's the best thing in the world. This is going to be great. We're going to do heaps of marketing. This is going to be brilliant. Now, I've heard all this before. Like, are you telling me PSE don't do enough marketing? Are you telling me they don't give away enough bows? Are you going to tell me that if we spend 10% more on marketing, we're going to make another 10, 20% more in sales? If that's what you're telling me, okay. That was not what Pete Shepley said with marketing. His conversation was, actually, it's very hard to make the money from sales that goes into marketing. So that was his view. And it's my view. When I've run advertising on TV and magazines, you know, if I spend $1,000 on running a page in an ad, I've got to sell 10 bows. It's very hard for me to sell 10 bows from the one ad in the magazine. So when I ran ads on TV, each ad was $1,000. I need to sell 10 bows from each ad. I did sell some bows from the TV ads, but not the amount required from the advertising. I've done radio ads. Radio for me was a complete failure. So I'll find that interesting to see what they intend to do and how they intend to promote it, and how that goes with what they're selling the product for versus what it's worth, and whether they're going to put up their prices, try and be competitive, what new products they come out with, are they going to do new apparel? So I find all that interesting, but there's not a lot of information yet about who owned the group. The Outdoor Heritage Group only set up yesterday, the website. So they purchased PSE, and literally their Facebook page went up yesterday, LinkedIn came up yesterday. It basically just all popped up. So it's a very nice, flashy website, but it doesn't kind of lead you in to see who the people are. And what their background is. I'm going to I'm going to talk about Martin Archery. The original owners of Martin Archery, Gail Martin, hard worker, gets to work with his wife early, they're last out the door. They built the company from ground up, and I think that's what Pete Shepley did. He was there every day. Hard workers, lots of innovation. He's an engineer who builds bows, designs stuff, competes in the marketplace. That's where he gets his kicks. That's what he enjoys. So when someone takes over the company, I'm always questioning why they're taking it over. Is it to make money? Is it because they like archery? Or do they just want to work hard? And, when Martin got sold, I don't remember the guy's name, but he was like, let's sign this guy, let's sign that guy, let's do TV shows. And I couldn't even talk to the guy who just brought in the company because he was too busy with the TV personalities having autographs and going out to lunch. I'm like, this shouldn't be your priority. Your priority should be getting products out to dealers. But he disagreed with me, and that's okay. And we know what happened to Martin. Although Martin's in business today, but it's been sold a couple of times since. Now, when Martin was first sold, what people told me, this guy is very successful, never failed in companies. He's an amazing person. That's what I was told, and I'm like, maybe Zack is exactly the same, this amazing person. But from what I've learned, and he puts himself down as a tech nerd on his LinkedIn statement, tech nerd, coffee lover, and outdoors person. Now, what I've learned from people who have been successful in business and people who are very successful in business, they work all the time. All the time. They just work 7 days a week. They're workaholics. So it's not about, look at me, it's just they just work all the time. And that's what makes them successful. So be very interesting to see what happens. That's all I could find on the company. But it'll be very interesting to see where PSE goes forward, whether they'll move, whether they'll make stuff in America, as Zack says, or whether they'll start sourcing stuff from overseas. It'll be very interesting to see where the company goes to in the future. I'm Stephen Hand from Archery Supplies. Thanks for watching.